Hello everyone and welcome back. So we've been talking a lot here on the channel, and I guess elsewhere on the internet as well, about the Beatles in mono lately, and it makes sense with the re-release of the box set this year. But I thought maybe it's time to switch a little bit back to stereo. And one of the friends of the channel also suggested or asked about the BC13 box set, which we actually did do a couple of videos on almost 2 years ago. That was my first BC13 box set, was from Netherlands. That was a Dutch variation of the box set, which I unboxed and presented on the channel as well. And then I did a follow-up video where I talked about how you could in that time at least, get a full analog Beatles collection of their sort of canon tracks from the 60s up until 1970 on a budget. So basically getting that box set from the Netherlands, which was slightly cheaper than variations from the UK, for instance, and then filling it in with other records that needed to complete the collection. We're actually going to do something similar today, but today we're going to look at my most recent BC13 box set, the Dutch one. If you remember, I mentioned on the channel as well before. I sold the records off. I kept the box actually because I wanted to put my mono Japanese records in it, but I also, when I sold those records, I put some money on top of that, and I purchased this near mint Beatles collection BC13 box set from the UK from the 80s. Now you'll see, I'll talk in a few minutes when I will present the contents of this box set in detail. Initially I bought this and thought this was 84 or 85 because this is how the seller had listed it, but as you will see when I'm going through the records, I came to the conclusion after doing some research online that this most probably is not actually from 84-85, but rather from late 81 or most probably from 1982. But before we go on to the contents of this box set and then just talk a little bit about the few elements which would need to be added to it to own a full set of the Beatles songs from their period as a group in stereo analog, I want to say that I do have copies of the records that were pressed starting with 2012 for most of these albums. So the 2009 digital remasters put on vinyl, I have them for different reasons. Some of them I got when I didn't have any other variation. I just heard that, for instance, with the Beatles and the Beatles For Sale sound good. Or I wanted to have, for instance, Please Please Me, because I didn't have the mono version yet, and I wanted to have one with the yellow, with the gold Parlophone label, sorry. Of course, it's not an original one, it's not from the 60s, but I like the reproduction. And they were quite cheap, right? So I have most of those, with the exception of the 5 albums which were mixed starting with 2017 by Giles Martin. So Sgt Pepper, the White Album, Abbey Road, Let It Be, and Revolver, those ones I have in the version that was remixed in those years. The other ones I have in their previous versions, which were mostly stemming from 2012, which were, again, based on the digital remasters of 2009. It's worth mentioning that those, or that set that I have, or that group of records that I have, that are the digital ones, basically, do include, or are the only copies that I have on vinyl of the 1987 new mix, stereo mix for Help and Rubber Soul, made by George Martin back then, because he did that mix for the digitization of the catalog, and they were put on vinyl as well. All the records before that include the original 1965 mix for those 2 albums, and for me it's good to have those, at least to have a copy on vinyl of his 1987 mix of those albums. Aside from those, and more importantly for a future video, I am compiling an alternate stereo collection for myself. So exactly like I did with the mono, where I had the mono from 2014 or 2025 now, and I also wanted the Japanese one as an alternative. I wanted to also have a full analog alternative to the contents of this box set, and to the couple, 2-3 records that are completing this to have the full catalog. That one I will show you in a future video, in the episode 2 of the Beatles stereo collection, let's say. Hopefully it'll be really soon. I'm waiting for a couple of replacements for a couple of those records. Most of them I already have, and you'll get to see in that future video some very, to me, interesting pressings. But for now, if you are curious to see the condition of the records in this box set and to see which other records I'm putting on top of it to have a full stereo analog collection of the Beatles, stick around. So this box set, as I said in the introduction, was a replacement for my initial BC13 box set from the Netherlands. Let's say the condition of the box itself was a little bit more beat up than the other one, than the Dutch one. Obviously I can switch the records around now. The Dutch box set that I had, well, the box itself is now housing my Japanese mono pressings of the Beatles from the 80s, and the records from that box set, like I said, I've sold. But this one, when it came, it was, like you see here, it has some sort of small issues. There's a couple of scratches here. The hinge here is you know, starting to peel off and you know, probably gets more and more damaged every time I open and close this. The corners have some peel off, and so on. You can find small defects, but overall it looks very nice. The writing is still there, and this gold lettering, the signatures, everything else, and it's still holding up, so it's good. The idea with this one was similar to the Dutch one. This one was considered to be from 84 or 85, or at least the seller presented it as such and had included it on Discogs and that category of the ones from 84, 85. In the meantime, by doing more digging on the pressings and how they were put out and what periods of time and so on, I came to, let's say, understand that this most probably was released in 1982, or at least this box set was sold and compiled in 1982. Somewhere probably early 1982, or though, you know, it could have been compiled late 81 and sold near the holidays then, or starting with 1982, or compiled and sold in 1982. And I will go through the pressings in here, and I will explain why I came to this conclusion, because I've looked for the pressings themselves and sort of tried to dig out the timings in which they were pressed, and that's how I came to the conclusion, and I will show what I mean. But let's open this up. So as you see, this one, you know, the hinges are not so good anymore. They have this band here which still keeps things together, I think, with a little bit of the faux leather finish from the other side also holding it back a little bit. Now the box itself, if you're looking at the inside, you still have this blue tint, but it has less mildew spots than the Dutch one had, so it's cleaner from that sense. Can you see the lid here? It looks very good. Now the records in here were all you know, flagged as being near mint, and to, you know, the biggest extent they are. You'll see the covers look absolutely pristine, at least some of them. The records look nice as well, but some of them did have some spots on them, like some markings on them. Overall, the sound though is indeed very close, or actually near mint, so was pretty happy with this one. It still sounds excellent, and I've been testing it alongside other stereo pressings that I have of these albums, which I will mention and we will get to see in one of the future videos, maybe basically in the second part of this one. They sound excellent. Okay, let's take a look at the records, and we'll start with Please Please Me. You can see, I mean, this looks very nice. You know, it still has its shine. It's not a full glossy, it's kind of a eggshell finish, but still looks really, really nice. No significant spots, tears, cuts, or, you know, seam splits or anything like that. You know, the Dutch ones that I had some mildew spots on some of the areas. Didn't bother me that much, but it's true that these ones look way better. Very little ring wear, you'll see. Some of them may have it, but it's barely noticeable, especially on the front. So yeah, it looks pretty nice. Aside from these small, like, veiny types of, I don't know, folds, I don't know what to call them. You can see them around here, maybe around here as well, but otherwise looking very good. You'll see the spines are looking very nice and clean. Now, the records came with their original, or it seems to be their original, inner sheets from the 80s. You can see here This one has an 11 and an 81. Hoping you can see that actually. So this refers to the month of November 1981 when this was probably pressed. So in this scenario, you would have to believe that and you'll see this is true for most of the inners in this set. Some of them are different months, but most of them show 81, which means that it is most probable that these were pressed late in 81 and then they were either sold then for Christmas or in 82 to replenish stocks. Although some of the pressings are not necessarily from this period, and I'll explain what I mean a little bit later. Now, the records, you'll see they look quite shiny and nice. Most of them, at least in the first half actually, have the 2 EMI box silver on black Parlophone label from the 80s. Most of the labels look nice. They have very little spindle marks. You know, I should get these cleaned soon because I've been manhandling them for the past couple of days. I'm trying to not leave fingerprints on some of the areas, but it's sometimes almost impossible if I'm not wearing gloves when I handle them, basically. So yeah, we'll have to get these cleaned again after this presentation. But in the end, the idea is most of these looked very nice from the moment that I got them, and for sure but yeah, the main idea is that most of these look very nice from the moment I've got them, and for sure they sounded really, really good. Now this one specifically is a -4-4 cut. Basically, from what I've researched, these were pressed starting from 1980 and up until 1985. Before this, I think there was a -4-2 cut that was mostly pressed in stereo in the UK, or -2-4, but I think -4-2. Anyway, for sure this is a -4-4, and for sure the timing of pressing is between 1980 and 85. So essentially these could have been pressed anytime starting 1980, basically. The next one is with the Beatles. Same situation, you can see the cover looks very, very beautiful. It's almost like new, right? There are new ones that sometimes don't look this cute. The only, again, these small veiny type of sort of indents that you can find on the margins, but otherwise nothing big. The back as well looks nice. This one has a little bit of dirt here, but I think this can be cleaned. It is possible sometimes it's because of how they sit pressed within, you know, against each other in the box. Okay, this is a -5-6 cut of With the Beatles, and I can tell you it sounds absolutely amazing. This one is also let's say a cut that was pressed somewhere, I mean starting with somewhere around 1980 and finishing again around 1985. Okay, the record, again, the silver on black 2 EMI box Parlophone label, pretty standard for the 1980s. Next we have A Hard Day's Night. Now for some of these, and I haven't gotten around to fixing this, you'll see, and this was one of the things that the seller mentioned, you know, like a small defect, let's say, or that some of the records had the year of the album written in what seemed to be like just a pencil. So, but yeah, some of them are like kind of, the pencil was pushed a little bit and they're kind of already kind of embedded in the cover itself, but I think they can be erased. I'll try to do it. I haven't had a chance to do it, even though I have these for a while. Anyway, the cover looks very nice. Again, same thing I'm saying, like you have these small, I don't know, lines happening around some of the edges, but that's about it. Again, the spine looks really nice, and the back looks absolutely excellent, as new. I'll take the disc out just to show here, but it's the same again, silver on black, 2 EMI box label, and again the inner is with 1181, which signifies November of 1981. Now this is a -2-4 cut. Also started apparently to be pressed in the 80s, in 1980 specifically, and apparently lasted up until 1984, when I think it was replaced by another cut. Now all of the three ones that you saw so far do not have Harry Moss's initials on the runout on each side, on any side, but still the sound for those is absolutely amazing, and I think for Please Please Me in stereo, that's one of the best pressings to me that there is, and I have others which I will talk about again in the future video. Same for With the Beatles. I think for With the Beatles even more so. This is an excellent pressing. I have others, again, we will talk about them in the future video when we will see the alternate stereo collection that I built, but this -5, -6 is one of the best sounding there is. For A Hard Day's Night, the -2-4, again, one of the best sounding that I have, in stereo at least. Next, we have Beatles For Sale. Still looking good, so, you know, it's kind of the same situation with all. This one has a small line, like a, see here? Kind of like a scratch. Maybe this is like the one that is the worst presenting, and still it's good, but I'll show you why. It's mostly because you can already see this is a gatefold, as usually this album was, and you can see it was pressed. So I mean, the fact that it was probably put in the box, it didn't keep it properly with the spine properly aligned. So now the spine is a little bit bent. It still looks good with the text and everything, but it's bent, and you see already here at this corner, you know, they're started to rip apart, to tear apart. Same a little bit here. And also it doesn't align anymore with the backside, but otherwise it's still looking quite good. Let's see inside, and the gatefold. The inner part of the gatefold looks really good. No major dents, cuts, scratches or anything like that. Not going to take the record out, it still looks good. This one is harder to take out, I guess. Trying to find here where the crayon year was written. Cannot see it now, but pretty sure I saw it on this one as well. But anyway, this Beatles For Sale has a -4-6 cut, so it's YEX 142-4, YEX 143-6, so -4-6 cut with Harry Moss's initials etched on the runout, I think, of the first side. This, as far as my research went, seems to have been pressed somewhere between 1976 actually and 1980. After 1980, apparently there was a new cut out, which means also that even if this box set is from like early 82 or late 81, it still had, and you'll see later this is the case, it still had some presses that were a little bit older. And this goes back to the discussion that has existed for these box sets for a while, which is that, and I think Andrew from Polygram, a great source of information for all of these, has mentioned as well, these were not compiled with pressings from that very year that were made specifically for the box. Sometimes they were, but often they were using stocks that they had from previous years. They were just compiling this set together. And moreover, in other countries, so UK was mostly UK, or I think just UK pressings, but other countries also kind of did mixtures where they imported certain records from neighboring countries or other countries which had the records. That's why we would have, you know, in box sets like Italy, France, or Sweden, or whatever, or Netherlands, you'd have combinations of pressings between that country and pressings from other countries. Where UK, that was not the case, but they still used apparently records from previous periods that were probably left over. Another possibility is that the person who had this box switched some of the records in time. That is also a possibility, but with most of them, I think it's just the fact that they were earlier pressings which remained in stock. And for Beatles For Sale, you know, I'm not super surprised. It wasn't the most popular Beatles album at the time, so yeah. Next, we have one of the best stereo cuts for Help, in my opinion, which is the -4-4. This started to be pressed 1980 in the UK, and it lasted until 1987. So it was a cut that was used until they digitalized the catalog and they standardized it. As you can see, the cover looks pretty nice. Has some dirt here, like this one I read I could try to clean up if I do it with a soft cloth and not with like liquids or things that can damage the cover, but kind of try to clean this up a little bit. Back also looks nice, a little bit of ring wear here, and again the same quasi-permanent, quasi, I don't know, like generally present small, I don't know, veins, veiny kind of bends here on the cover. Okay, record is still a 1980s Parlophone label to EMI box. Okay, and the inner, this one is slightly different. You can see it has a 4, hope you can see, has a 4 and an 81, which signifies April of 1981, so a little bit earlier than some of the other pressings in here. Next one, and one of my favorite sounding ones in the set, thankfully, Rubber Soul. The cover still looks nice. It's a little bit like the color is a little bit light, I would say. I'm not sure if it's from time passing or this is how it was released. You can see here, this one also has like the year 1965 written down by somebody. Otherwise, the cover kind of looks good, you know. Again, no major faults with it, really, at least from my perspective. Beautiful. Let's say the inner is going back to the 11, 1981, so November 1981. And this, obviously still with the Parlophone 2 EMI box, silver and black. Take this one out a little bit. Rest assured I'm going to clean these very soon, all of them, before I put them back. A beautiful copy of Rubber Soul. Now this is a -6-5 cut with Harry Moss's initials. Again, to me, one of the very good sounding ones. It was pressed quite a long time, so according to what I found online, it's somewhere between 1976 and 1984. So quite a long time. So this could have been from 81 as the inner shows, but could have been earlier as well, I guess. But yeah, Rubber Soul. Next one is Revolver. This one looks really, really good. It's better than many of them, to be honest. Very few defects that I could actually see. It's not perfect white. I don't know if it's yellowed out by time or it's just the way that it was. It's not yellow, but you know, like maybe again an eggshell color sort of. The spine again looking perfect. This will be the last one. Oh no, I think also Sgt Pepper, sorry. Still with the G-Box EMI Parlophone label. Inner still from November of 1981. But this press, this is another interesting one to me, is actually a -3-4 with Harry Moss's initials. And by the way, since Beatles For Sale help, Rubber Soul also had them and Revolver also has them. But the way that I looked at this -3-4, it appeared to be pressed between 1973 and 1980. There's a high chance that this is another leftover pressing, if this box set indeed was compiled in late 81, early 82. And we will get to the reason why I think this was compiled for 1982. And probably why Revolver is like a leftover, because otherwise it could have been from 1980, the box set, looking at some of the records that were coming. But still, we have the inner sleeve. I'm pretty sure the person who had this not replaced most of the inner sleeves with those 1181s. And at the same time, you will see we have something in here that tells us this is probably late 81. But the pressings themselves, some of them, including Revolver, again, potentially coming from 1 year or even more earlier. Next, we have Sgt Pepper, another beautiful copy, lighter on the color, but very still bright, you know, colors on it. Again, very little faults that you could find, especially this back looks absolutely amazing. With the lyrics and everything. This one also had the year etched here. Not sure to what extent you can see that, but I will see. Okay. Spine. This one, again, amazing. Okay. And this, of course, is a gatefold, as opposed to the Dutch one that I had, which has some mildew spots on the top here. And this one looks pristine, so you could pass it for new. I don't think anyone would dispute. And even like here, where most of the usage for these records happens at the spine, it still looks great. It did include the cutouts and near mint, or mint, if you will, state. And the sleeve is still November 1981. The record is still the 2 EMI box, silver on black. This pressing of Sgt Pepper is from 1980, or at least that's the only year where I found this being pressed also kind of separately. It's a -5-4 cut, which sounds very good. This was like the only one, I think, which was very limited in terms of the pressing year, where I couldn't find it in more variations later than 1980 or earlier. Maybe it was pressed more, but for sure 1980 was a year when this one was pressed. So again, if this is the case where these records were compiled from stocks that were left over, it's clear that some of them were, and some of them were just, you know, new cuts or cuts that were cut recently, maybe for the box itself and for wide release. The White Album, it's looking quite good. It doesn't have a number, so it's not numbered. It does have some lines here, like a sort of a line of some type of dirt or something, I don't know. But this can be cleaned to a certain extent. I will not clean it too much. I like it somehow. Some of them I like to have completely white, especially the ones which are glossy. These ones are nice to see in their, or you know, sort of natural state, if you will. The spine, not sure if you can see it, hopefully you can, but it looks quite good. It's the lettering is grayish, so the gatefold, another one that looks okay on the inside as well, right? Now this one is more complicated. Obviously, first, before we look at what the cuttings are, we have the poster, okay, which is in an excellent state. It's kind of as new again. And we have the pictures as well. Okay, I'll take them out for you. These are looking absolutely excellent. Okay, John, Ringo, and George, looking fine as ever. I'm not going to take out both records. I'm going to take out one and also one sleeve. And this one again is labeled November 1981, and this one is slightly different from the ones before it. As you can see, aside from the made in Great Britain and the patent number, and of course the intended month, there is no other printing on here. The other ones had those instructions of how to care for your records. The records both have the green apple on one side and the half apple on the other side. They look nice. Still need to clean these again because I've tested them a lot lately. But specifically, this album has a very interesting combination of cuts. So it's a -3-6 with Harry Moss's initials on the first record, and a -1-2 with Harry Moss's initials on the second record, which is an interesting combination. Like the first one is clearly a later cut, and the second disc is actually a very early cut. From the combination perspective of these two cuts on the two records, I tried to kind of pinpoint this, and I found it being produced as early as 1978, and potentially it was produced up until around 1980. I'm saying this, I'm not completely sure, but it appears that like 81, 82 they started to produce new copies, so with new matrices. So I would assume that this is again a copy from a little bit before 1981 that was put together for this box set specifically. Or maybe, I mean, not put together for the box set specifically, maybe I misspoke. It's like it was, you know, produced earlier, but it was then gathered up and thrown in the box set as well. Next, we have Yellow Submarine. Another one that's looking nice, but another one yet with the writing here. Okay, but otherwise looking very beautiful, clean, front and back. Clearly this one was not played too much, not manhandled too much. Okay, the spine looking very good. Now, this one goes back to the printed sleeves. 1181 again. The record, the green apple once more. Very clean, very nice. Now this is another interesting one because it's a -7-2 cut with Harry Moss's initials etched. But from my research, it was produced from 1976 and up until 1979. I don't think it even caught 1980. The copies that I found online that were from 1980s onwards, basically 84 or such, I still had the -7 on the first side, but had the -3 on the second side. So this tells me again that it was a leftover, one of the ones that didn't really sell that well in the late 70s, and then it was put on in this box in the early 80s. Next one, Abbey Road. Another one that looks pristine overall, to me at least. Incredible looking after all these years. 43 years, I think. Spine also looking nice. And this is another one which has the year written here. It's upside down. But yeah, 1969. The inner, again, November 1981, but without the printed part of the inner, and the record still the apple, of course. This one is a -6-4 cut, another excellent sounding one if you ask me. Again, Harry Moss. So with Abbey Road is the one that unless it was put in this box set and replacing the original one in the box set for any reason, which I don't think it was, is the latest one that started to be pressed out of these ones. I mean, in terms of the years of the pressings. So this is the only one which started in 1981, late actually 1981. I found some notes online about somewhere, I think November or something like that, or autumn of 1981. Given that this was not produced in this cut, which is a -6-4 in 1980, we can conclude that the box set cannot be a 1981 or earlier. Clearly, it is later than when this started to be produced, this -6-4, which was again late 1981. So most probably box set is from either very late 1981, like December, maybe for holidays, or put together later in 82. Now, this cut is actually excellent. It sounds very nice, so it's a very good one. This is the one, again, which kind of validates the idea that the box set is a 1982 box set. Closing into the end, Let It Be. Looking nice as well. I mean, this one is black, and you'll always see like the small, you know, again, dents, indentations, scratches on it, but still looks quite nice, I think. Still can be a soft, clean apply to it, and it will look even nicer. Spine, looking nearly perfect. Record, again, the apple, right? Let's see, the inner sleeve for this one is a blank inner sleeve. I don't know if this was replaced or this was the original. Nothing on it, so no way to tell us at least the year of the sleeve itself. But the pressing is a -3U-4 with Harry Moss's initial. According to what I found online, this was pressed somewhere between 1976 and 1981. So basically, like the last batch of these were included probably in this box set, and then the cutting has changed for the next ones. And the absolute last piece in the box, the Beatles Rarities, the album created specifically for the BC13 box set in 1978. Looking really nice as well. This one only has like small, you know, peel off of the color here at the corner of the sleeve, but otherwise kind of looks very beautiful. Again, the spine looks nice as well. This one was one, I mean the first one in this box, or the only one, which didn't have the YEX prefix. It has an SPLSP, and then the cuttings are 261A2 and 262B3. This one was apparently pressed somewhere between 1980 and 1984, making it perfect candidate for this box set from, again, circa 1982. Let's see what we have inside. Now, interestingly enough, this one has a 681, the inner sleeve, still printed nicely. I love these printed inner sleeve, to be honest. I wish all of them had them, to be honest. So this is from June 1981, at least the sleeve. It's possible that the pressing is also from 1981 in June, since I said this was pressed between 1980 and 1984. And it was just thrown in the box. And we are going back to the silver and black 2 EMI box Parlophone label for this one. So this is the full set, the full contents of the box set. All of these records looking mighty fine, as you can see. You could swear they are new, like if in some cases I think even some of the contents of the 2012 box set were not looking as good as some of these look. Definitely these sound excellent, and being full analog, it's, you know, it's an enticing proposal to have these. But as you know, these do not include the entire Beatles catalog from the time they were together. So in the 60s, they are missing certain elements, and in order to fill in this space, the way that I did it in one of those 2 videos that I did on the stereo collection of the Beatles records a couple years ago. So we will look at to see what we can add to this set to make it a complete set of Beatles songs, of their catalog, of their main catalog from the UK, from the period that they were together, so up until 1970. But the first thing that we will need to add to this to complete it is the US version of the Magical Mystery Tour, which was added to the UK catalog later than it was in the US catalog, because in the UK it was released as a double EP, and a few of the songs which ended up on the US version of the album were actually released on singles, like Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, All You Need Is Love, Hello Goodbye, and so on. So the UK people decided at a certain point later to include the Magical Mystery Tour album in their standard catalog, but it wasn't included in these box sets. So you'll need to fill this in separately, and you have a couple of ways to do it that will keep it as close to the period and to the level of quality of this as possible. So one would be, there were several iterations of the Magical Mystery Tour album in the UK, so UK pressings in the 80s. They kind of look like this. Now, full disclosure, I wanted to buy one, even though it wasn't, the UK pressings from the 80s did not really have the full real stereo for all of the songs. As you know the story, some of the songs on the original US album were not in true stereo, they were fake stereo, so to speak. And that was fixed by, apparently only, by some German pressings, initially on the Horzo label from the 70s, and then on the Apple label, but still from Germany, still from the 70s and early 80s. So that's the only version that has real stereo before 1987 onwards, when the new digitally remastered albums were put also on vinyl, and then you would have a Magical Mystery Tour from the UK, or generally from Europe, with true stereo on all of the songs, but it will be a digital one. So there were no UK pressings, as far as I know, with analog recording and analog mastering and everything else, and that also were full true stereo. Still, those 3 songs were fake stereo, but you can still get it. Like, if you want to have, for instance, if you are like you are a stickler for pressings from a certain age, and you have this box set with UK pressings from the 80s, logically you would need to have a Magical Mystery Tour from the 80s from the UK, even though it's not fully true stereo. And there are some pressings, and this unfortunately is not one of them. It looks like it's one of them. I bought it as if it were one of them. When I bought it, the label on the listing was that is from 1984 or 85. Unfortunately, when it came, I first noticed the code bar. This is not necessarily a problem, because I think some 84, 85 or 85 pressings did have the code bar, but not with all of these details exactly like this. But what was the key that this was not actually the pressing I thought I bought was this part here, which says that this album has been direct metal mastered from a digitally remastered original tape to give it the best possible sound quality. I don't know about that. But it's clear that this one actually was probably an 87, 88 pressing of this album after the catalog was digitized, was remastered digitally. But as you can see, this looks absolutely pristine. It looks new for all intents and purposes on the inside as well. The booklet in this one is included in here, so it's separate from the rest, so that it doesn't really tear off. And the booklet looks absolutely beautiful. Untouched, really. No spots, no tears, not even those small, indentations that I found on the other records on the box set. But yeah, I bought this separately. Wasn't expensive at all, but now I see why. It's because it was basically a digitally remastered copy from the late 80s. Still, it looks good. I can tell you it sounds pretty good. I mean, it's powerful, it's punchy, it's okay. But what you need if you want to keep it full analog and to be in tune with the 80s UK pressings, you would need an 84, 85. When I will get one, I will show it to you. But the other option, of course, is if you are not a stickler for having UK pressings from the 80s in your set, or in a set like this one, you can still have a German pressing, which will be true stereo for all the songs. It's one of the best, if not the best sounding Beatles cut record ever, as it's been touted by many people. And this copy here, specifically on the Green Apple label, is a 1981 repress of this with the A1 and B3 cuttings, which were used first on the Horzu label in the 70s. The true stereo version of this full album with all of the songs in true stereo. Horzu label first in the 70s, and then repressed late 70s, early 80s on the Apple label, with the apple here on the corner of the cover. One of the best sounding ones, true stereo. And adding this to this set would at least fill in the album part of it, and you would have all of the albums which are currently canon in the Beatles catalog. However, there will still be a few songs missing. Obviously, the way that the Beatles estate has completed this catalog in 1987-88, and it has kept it since then like that, is through the release of this, the Past Masters compilation, with 2 records covering singles, B-sides, and all the things that were not included in all of the albums that I just showed, plus the Magical Mystery Tour. This was a very, very good compilation. However, there is no version of this that is not fully digital in terms of the mastering. So this was the original one from 88, but also the one from 2012, which is based on the 2009 digital remaster. All of them, yeah, will be basically digital pieces put on vinyl. They sound very good, some of them, but the idea is you will not be able to find a full analog one. So if your thing is to have a full stereo collection of the Beatles that sounds very good, that is still, you know, somewhat obtainable, and let's say it's not super expensive, you can still find it to a certain degree online. The Magical Mystery Tour, you can find these 81 copies still, and they are very good, or you can find the UK ones if you're not a stickler for those true stereo songs. But the past masters you will not be able to find in analog. So you'll still need to fill in the gaps that are left between the core albums, the Rarities, and this Magical Mystery Tour, and the past masters. And so I think the best way, and it's something that is kind of easily accessible, is to have the red and the blue albums, right? Because this will give you like the missing songs between all of these records and the past masters. Now, you have multiple choices with this when it comes to analog. None of them are new or newly available now. The current ones that are available in the market are the 2023 new mixes with expanded track list, but those are digitalized. These again are my 2014 full analog copies, which are excellent, from Europe. But I also showed you on the channel a few weeks before my Japanese copies from 82 on red and blue vinyl, which are full analog, and they sound absolutely excellent. But what most people swear by are the UK initial original pressings from 1973, and probably the ones that came afterwards up until the 80s. I think they should all be fine. And those are kind of widely available, and you have a chance, even though the ones from 73 are the oldest ones, to still find maybe very good Platinum Mint copies, which should do. So that should be a pretty easy gap to fill. You will have some of the songs will be duplicated, basically, because what's on here, but still, you know, it's good enough. With these, you are not missing any of the core songs from the Beatles catalog from their tenure together as a group. So up until 1970, with one small exception, which, I don't know, I mean, me as a collector now, I already have it in multiple variations, I guess, but it's not like a mandatory thing, which is the Love Me Do version, the single version of Love Me Do with Ringo on drums. That one is not part of any of these records. The Rarities doesn't have it. The Past Master does, but again, it's digitalized. So that should be a pretty easy gap to fill. You'll have some of the songs duplicated. I don't think that's a problem for anyone, but in this way you will contain all of the main Beatles catalog from when they were together. Well, that was about it for today. This is, again, my UK early 1980s, probably 1982 stereo box set of the Beatles collection, BC13. Again, relatively good state of the box if I keep it well and I don't like manipulate it too often. It should keep in a good state. Adding on top of it, of course, you need the Magical Mystery Tour album, and you need the red and blue albums to have like a complete set of the full analog stereo sort of recordings of the Beatles. With those, you will be missing the original Love Me Do single version with Ringo on drums, but still you'll have the full catalog overall. And if you want to complete your collection of the Beatles in stereo catalog, then you will need the Magical Mystery Tour, the US album, but you can get it as a UK pressing, which will still be full analog. I think it was from the 70s, but also the 80s. Many of them have Harry Moss's initials etched, so he mastered those records. They sound really, really good, but still, you know, take into account that 3 of the songs, which are supposed to be in stereo, they are actually in fake stereo. If you want a full analog, but also true stereo cut of this record, then you need to go for the German pressing, starting I think with 73 with the Horzu label. The first pressing of that was not the true stereo, but then they fixed that, and the A1B3 matrix is the one that you want. The Horzu ones are probably a little bit more expensive since they were the first presses containing the full stereo, but you can get to a relatively decent price the Apple pressings after that. So from the late 70s and early 80s, this one is 81 with the Apple label. These will still have the A1B3 pressing of this record. And to complete the catalog, you could use past masters, but be aware this is digitalized, so it's starting from 88, and all of the copies that were produced of this apparently were based on digital remasters, even either from 87 or later on from 2009. If you want full analog versions of some of the songs that are missing from the initial collection, this is your best bet. The blue and red albums, you'll also have a lot of duplicates against your collection, but they do contain the missing songs, full analog stereo on some of these copies. This is the latest one that was full analog, the 2014, but you can very well get copies even from Japan from the early 80s, which sound very good. At least the ones on color vinyl that I have sound very good, but you can get a lot of UK versions, and there are other countries which produced good sounding versions of these records, which will really complete your set. But this was about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments what other variations of these records you would like to see. At a certain point, we will continue with a series where we will compare the vinyl and CD counterparts of the albums that were left in the collection. But I think the next video will be a continuation of this one, looking at that alternate collection of Beatles stereo albums that I'm building. That one has a very eclectic mix of different pressings from different countries. You will have German pressings, you will have UK pressings, you'll have Australian pressings, maybe even some Canadian pressings. So I think it's going to be interesting. I hope you will join me for that one, and I hope I can get the missing records from that set soon enough so that I can get the video out to you and showcase what I have there. Otherwise, another special thanks for people who are subscribing, who are not only watching the videos but liking them, commenting on them and sharing them and so on. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time.